is acting as a trigger to create a more engaged discussion about architecture in Mumbai and in India more broadly. And it's for that reason, one of the massive efforts we've sort of taken is to complement this exhibition with over 30 events, which we hope will work in synergy with the exhibition. So the exhibition, as you see it here, is the physical artifact, but there's also the virtual component of it, which is 30 events, including 2 major conferences, which start and end the exhibition, and all these details are in the schedules that you will sort of see. These events, while they're physically anchored here at the NGMA, they involve multiple venues and partners, such as the museum right across the road. Mr. Mukherjee is here, the Sir J.J. College of Architecture, the Max Muller Bhavan, the Kala Ghoda Association, we're using their pavements and many of their resources, and the gallery at Kitab Khana, where there's going to be an exhibition on affordable housing. We hope that collectively these will be kind of form a productive synergy between the physical artifacts, as I said, and these many fora for discussions on architecture, which we have structured with our partners. And so we are really grateful to the Ministry of Culture, NGMA, and UDRI for supporting this format, because this is a bit of a deviation in terms of the format, because we feel, and they have supported us in feeling that these issues are important to the city and to the country more broadly. And while we have thanked our patrons, partners, friends of the exhibition on the panels that you will see in the credits, I just want to, and of course it's too long a list to go through it all, but I just want to highlight a few very particular kinds of supports that we have got. Especially first from the Tata Trust for their very generous support to not only the idea of the exhibition at all levels, the events, publication, but also the execution of the exhibition. In addition, the Kala Ghoda Association, the JSW Foundation, Tata Steel, the Raza Foundation, and Domus Magazine have been really quite incredible in the way they've supported this event, and a real sincere thanks to them. Similarly, our institutional partners need a special acknowledgement, and the many people in their organizations that are both friends as well as supporters, the Sir J.J. College of Architecture, the Max Muller Bhavan, the museum, the Charles Correa Foundation, the South Asia Institute at Harvard University. There's a very special category of supporters whom we've acknowledged as friends of the exhibition you'll see on the credits. And this is an exemplary group of people, architects in Mumbai, friends, who have collectively provided us the seed money to make the research and the foundation of this exhibition possible. And we are really grateful to their support. And it's really, again, for us, a very unique format for funding, where the funding itself is broken into many stages to support the research and then go on to different stages. And so the Friends of the Exhibition really is a group that we are very thankful to. But most importantly, our graphic designers and exhibition consultants, Kahini Works, Ruchita Madhav, Aditya Pulse, who visualize and synthesize all the disparate data into coherent exhibition material, and to Messrs. Display House, Ajay, Radhika, and Varun, for executing all of this so elegantly. And we are grateful to all these folks, really, for the energy, commitment they've brought to help this exhibition actually be realized. Finally, there are a few people who, while we mention in the credits, need special acknowledgement. The first is the staff of the NGMA, in particular Mr. Shankar, Mr. Patke, Manjari, Shruti, as well as the security staff. The role they play is invisible but crucial. The young group of architects and researchers who formed our research team, and a lot of the research that you see here is really attributed to them. We are totally grateful for the effort they've put in. Kamalika Bose, who managed the whole project, Ridisha, Sohail Soni, and Zinia, who made the core team to make this all possible. In addition, thanks to 3 or 4 Mumbai architects, young architects, Kapil Gupta, who helped us visualize our research in the form of that infographics, which was a very complex piece of work, and I think many of you will spend an hour on it, because there's just an amazing amount of data and intersection of data, which is very revealing. Rushad Shroff, who in partnership with Asian Paints has created all the beautiful tables, seating arrangements that you'll see right through the gallery. They're pieces of art that he sort of visualized. And lastly, Samir Padodra with Vami, his associate at SPA Architects, who mobilized over 100 students of architecture and handcrafted a paper installation on the top floor of this gallery. And I think we should really applaud all these people for their effort. Now to just move on to the formalities of the inauguration. And we'd like to invite our special guests to light the lamp and inaugurate the exhibition. We have formed a group, or we invited a group of what we call, more than anything, eminent citizens of Mumbai, who actually don't need any introduction, but I'm going to say a few words and request them to come up to light the lamp. First is Mr. I.M. Kadri, who is a senior architect. He's been practicing here since 1960, and he's sort of been cited as an outstanding architectural engineer by the Institute of Engineers. But really, for his extensive social work, the government of Maharashtra appointed him Sheriff of Bombay in 1994. Mr. Kadri, if you would please. We have invited Mr. Uttam Jain, but unfortunately he's been keeping ill health today and so couldn't join us, but we are grateful that he agreed to do this. Mr. Kamu Iyer, who has been in practice for over 5 decades, and he's straddled many generations of architects in Mumbai. His interest in writing about architecture of the decades of the 40s, 50s, 60s has suddenly changed the conversation in the city and brought considerable attention to this period of our immediate past, which is very, very important. Brinda Somaya, who has been working for over 3 or 4 decades in Mumbai, her practice has merged contemporary architecture, conservation, social equity issues, and she has won the prestigious Indian Institute of Architects Baburai Matre Gold Medal for Lifetime Achievement. Hafiz Contractor, he's been in practice for 3 decades, and perhaps one of the most prolific architects in the country. He has expanded the engagement of design and developer-initiated projects and has added a voice of controversy and provoked discussions within the profession on a series of issues to do with architecture. Thank you. Firoza Godrej, who is the ex-chairperson of the NGMA, not an architect, but she's the one who supported this project at its inception. And herself has done wonderful exhibitions, and she serves on the board of several social and cultural institutions in Mumbai and has done a lot for the cultural life of the city. Mr. Bolakar, who the chairperson of NGMA, may I now ask you and Mr. Kenneth to also please line. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to now call upon Ranjit and Kaivan to share with you the structure of the exhibition. I was just talking to them, and we are all a bit overwhelmed with the number of people here. And so what we have promised as a walk through the exhibition is going to be logistically difficult. So instead, I think what they'll share with you is the structure of the exhibition and allow you to then, at your ease, look at things. And we are going to do several guided tours through the 3 months of this exhibition. We'll announce them, and it'd be wonderful if some of you came back, and we'd be happy to engage with you in much more detail. So I'm going to hand it over to Ranjit and to Kaivan.
Thanks, Rahul. Thank you all for being here for this opening. The exhibition, I'll jump into the structure of the exhibition right away. It's a 3-tier structure. So there's a sandwich kind of a structure with a central portion that itself is again divided into 3 areas. I'll try and describe the beginning structure, which is where all of us are standing and occupying this space right now. I think one of the attempts in this exhibition was to sort of look essentially at the ecosystem within which architecture functions. So as much as we constantly speak about architecture, there was at one level to look at the profession, the idea of a profession, as well as the idea of a profession. And the other thing that we have tried to explore in this exhibition is also the role of the architect. Not the architect as a shining figure that stands out, but as an architect who essentially through his job as an architect engages with the space of society, culture, and essentially politics. And I think this has been a key concern for all of us, which also was a driving force for the research that you see at many levels, but also which became some kind of a guideline for our research team to progress when we were trying to work with things. One simple way that we sort of worked is what we have also titled one of our section called Profession Through Numbers. And that was very, very essential that when you look at a profession and when we talk of an ecosystem, there is the conversation about an education system that produces the professional, that produces the architect. There is a whole space within which, for example, architecture functions. There are questions about design, but there are also questions about real estate. There are also questions about patronage. There are also questions about the social structure within which architecture produces itself. A simple question as to what do architects do with housing. At the same time, how do architects engage with the public space through public institutions? On the other hand, there was also a question as to the production of the intellectual knowledge within which architecture functions, which essentially comes through the area of publications, whether it is books, whether it is monographs, whether it is magazines. So in that sense, what you see on this floor is a certain kind of a segregation of various corners where some of these questions are raised and picked up. For example, just the two maps that you see behind me are essentially two moments within which this exhibition is focused, and it simply looks at the growth of urbanization with the growth of essential or the important or the large practices in the country and the growth of the number of schools that have taken place in this country. One of the figures suggests literally that within the next 5 years, the number of students will outnumber the number of registered architects that stand today within the Council of Architecture. Also looking at professional bodies like essentially the Council of Architecture, the Indian Institute of Architects, etc. The next series of exhibition, the next series of levels within this exhibition, as I said, are within a three-tier structure themselves, and I would request Ranjit to talk about them.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you all for being here this evening with us. It's a very, very special occasion for all three of us, Rahul, Kevan, and me, because over the years there's much that we have done in this quarter. And I have to recall that it was really Rahul Mehrotra Sharda Dwivedi who came up with, many years ago, the notion that this could well be a special precinct devoted to culture and that it could act as an arts quarter. In some sense, that notion has now been embedded and naturalized, if you will. But we have to remember that it did not always exist. And it's really through the coming together of different kinds of cultural practitioners and, frankly, all of us present here this evening that this quarter or this precinct achieves its energy and its meaning. Something that I would like to also say about this exhibition, building off of this, is that it marks the convergence of people and ideas that have been in play for a number of years. With Rahul, for instance, this journey goes back nearly 25 years when we were meant to work on an anthology journal called Yatra, which then mutated into a set of adventures with the UDRI, including a one-day symposium on alternative practices. With Kevan, it's been the better part of the last decade with a very strong emphasis on the attempt to revive cultural institutions, which again reminds me of the very special nature of this occasion, because this quarter is marked off between the CSMVS, the NGMA, and the Jagir Art Gallery, each with its own very, very particular history of intervention and formation of culture for this city. So, to focus on part two, the three mezzanines that many of you are in fact in right now, if part one takes the form of a critical survey or a report or a stock-taking of the profession, in part two we segue into a more historical survey and engagement of what Indian architecture did across this long period from 1947 to 1991. So the exhibition is mapped in relation to what strike us as three major historical events: independence, the emergency, and liberalization. In each case, our concern is with the relative proximity or distance of the architect from the state as patron, and with larger social and cultural ideas. To what extent were architects part of the nation-building project is one of the key questions we ask in part two of the exhibition. How did that relationship embed itself in a larger culture in terms of institutions, in terms of symbols with which people could identify themselves, and how over those 4.5 or 5 decades did that relationship between architects and the state unravel in a certain way. Those are some of our concerns. And as you go up, you will find that our main operational tools, if you will, are text and the judicious use of images. A number of our friends, including, well, also relatives, family members, were a bit surprised that we had no models at all in this exhibition. And I have to say that for the 3 of us, this was a conscious decision. The idea, if you will, was that the exhibition should focus on these interrelationships. It should focus on the ideational stratum of architecture. We did not want objects to be fetishized. We did not want to draw attention to something that might be more aesthetic and conceptual, and we wanted this really to be the emphasis. At each point in the exhibition, you will find that there are timelines, a fine old museum device, which helps orient whatever is going on in Indian architecture at the time to what might have been happening in the domain of political action. Were there schisms in the state? Was regionalism on the rise? Was the sense of a nation state breaking up at certain points? These are the kinds of interrelationships that we would like to focus on in this show. And to adapt a phrase from Amartya Sen, I would like to suggest that this is not only a discursive and a didactic exhibition, but it is also an argumentative exhibition. And you will see that for yourselves when you confront, turning a corner as it were, the various provocative statements that have been embedded into the body of the exhibition. Some